Hey friend, welcome to the Halfway to Dead podcast. I'm your host, Jen Lovell. Listen, you and I have reached that age where we are done with the bullshit. We know that midlife is our chance to flip the script and experience life on our own terms. It's time to reconnect with our higher selves and reclaim our inner peace. Are you ready with an open heart and an open mind? Awesome, you're in the right place. Hop in and ride shotgun with me on this midlife spiritual journey. Hey everybody, I have a really special episode for you today. I have Brittany Wittig with me. So Brittany is a fear alchemist, a spiritual mentor, and a direct verbal channel for Ozanon, a Pleiadian collective of beings who speaks through her as one. She's also the host of the Coming Out of the Spiritual Closet podcast, which is globally ranked in the top 10%. So got to check that one out. Brittany is on a mission to not only help people connect more clearly to their intuition, but to then embody that intuitive connection so it can support and expand their everyday lives. So listen, I'm not going to lie, guys, this episode's pretty woo-woo. And so even if the subject matter in this episode seems a bridge too far, you're like, Jen, what are you doing? I don't know about this alien thing. I'm just going to ask that you stay with me. You have an open mind and remember that learning about others' belief systems, even if it's not resonating with you, helps us all get along better as a collective, right? We are all one. So think of it like this. Think of this example. So I have no intention of leading a life that includes plural marriage. I have no intention of I'm not looking for sister wives, you guys. I can barely handle one relationship, let alone having multiple marriage partners. Okay. Not looking to be a sister wife. However, I love watching the show Sister Wives, and I find it so interesting because I love to see things from different perspectives. Even if I have no intention of adopting that perspective myself, I believe that learning about different lifestyles, beliefs, and practices can only help us understand each other better and feel more of that oneness, that we're all connected through God. You know this, we've talked about it. So yes, I learned to love about new things, and I am totally down with the idea that we here on earth, as humans, we are not the only beings that God created. I think to believe so would be a little self-centered of us. I do not think that we are even the most highly intelligent life form. I mean, look at us. We're a hot mess, you guys. And I actually believe that's on purpose. I think this is exactly how God and we intended our time on earth to be. This is part of why we chose to come here to earth, because it's one of the only places we can learn some of these harder lessons. So in this episode, Brittany helps explain some of the basics about 3D versus 5D, interdimensional beings. Because you know, your girl Jen, like I've told you before, I'm wrapping my brain around it right here with you guys. Okay. So I've got Brittany here. She's going to help kind of talk us through some of this, and then talks about what led her to become a direct verbal channel for them, because this was unexpected for her too, you guys. And so it's time to just open our minds and let's jump in together and learn about everything that Brittany has to share. Listen to this one all the way to the end because it's some really interesting stuff. Hey, Brittany, thanks for being with me today.
Thank you so much.
No, this is going to be a fun one, you guys. So I kind of told you everything we're going to talk about today, but this is going to be a little bit outside of what some of you have maybe heard in my audience. So we're going into this one with an open mind and an open heart. And even if you're like, whoa, this is a little much for me. No, it's good to learn and get educated on things, because you never know when you're going to feel a pull towards that more or anything else. I always like to say, I have no intention of jumping out of a plane, but I will have a full conversation about it with someone because it's cool. Right?
Yes, totally.
Like I even like to learn about other religions. I have no intention of practicing them, but I love just hearing what other people are doing out in the world, right? Different lifestyles and stuff. It's cool. Yeah.
I love that.
So I first want to start, we're going to get into Brittany's story, but first I feel like we need to do a little bit of preliminary talking about some of these things. So you know what she's saying as she's explaining her experience, because Brittany is a direct verbal channel. So tell us exactly what that is and what you're channeling. Let's talk about that right off the top. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So a direct verbal channel, what this means is that I am opening myself up, opening up my system, my body, and allowing non-physical beings, we could call them extra dimensional beings, allowing them to speak through my body, allowing essentially because they are non-physical, they cannot verbally speak to humans unless they are moving through a human, a physical body.
Like you. Okay.
Exactly. And so I open myself up to allow them through. I only do this type of channeling with one group of beings. There are verbal channels out there who channel lots of different things. I don't. I have one group of beings that are my primary guides that I work with.
Okay.
It is a group of 44 beings who speak as one. They speak as one voice, but it is a group of beings. And the name that they've given themselves for humans is Ozanon.
Ozanon. Okay.
And this is primarily for our benefit. That's what they've explained to me, that they don't really label themselves, but because we like names so much, they know it's helpful to give themselves a name for us.
Okay. So the group is Ozanon. And are they a part of a bigger group or?
Yes. So Ozanon, they call themselves Pleiadian beings. So Pleiadian beings, they are a group of energies that many different people have worked with and connected with in different ways. If you look up in the sky at the constellation Pleiades, that is the star system that these beings are connected to. Now, with that said, I always encourage people not to get too hung up on the 3D physicality of this, because what we're talking about here is very non-physical. I wouldn't get too hung up on like, oh, they're hanging out around that constellation right now.
Right. Yeah. Because our human brains like to wrap around things in a very 3D kind of way. But this is all much more spiritual, spirit, soul connection type of thing.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So basically intergalactic beings. So basically like we've all been talking about aliens, right?
Yeah.
That's like a very lay term that everyone's throwing around, right?
Yes. And you know what? It's a term that works. It's not always the term that I use, but for many people first being introduced to this, that's the term that makes sense. And it is accurate. It is an accurate term to use.
Yeah. So, because what is the difference when you're talking about we live in 3D? Well, actually, we're supposed to be raising up into 5D right about now. But what is the difference between 3D and 5D? Is there a 4D? We never talk about a 4D. Is there a 4D?
Yes. Okay. So yes. So the 3D is what we are all used to, right? The 3D is the physical. It's like the table that I'm sitting at. It's the chair I'm sitting in. We all understand that, right? So 4D is when you bring time into the mix. So we can perceive our past and our future, even though it's not happening right now, right? But we have memories. Memories are 4D. And then when you talk about 5D, the biggest thing that I like to emphasize with this is that 5D is not a place we're going. A lot of us have heard about we're raising into the 5D. We're moving from the 3D to the 5D. Yes, but we're not physically moving anywhere. So the 5D is basically the dimension that holds all information in the universe. It is our access to all that is. So maybe some of you have heard people say, the whole universe is inside you. There's a Rumi quote. The entire universe is inside of you. The 5D is where we can access that. It's where we can access all of that information. The 5D is also still accessible to us when we are on the other side, when we are no longer in human form. So when we talk about all of us rising into the 5D, what that really means is our capacity to connect to the 5D, our capacity to connect to all of that information is coming online. When we're in the 5D, we'll still be here in our 3D bodies, but we will be able to access all of that non-physical information.
We're all expanding kind of our consciousness, our ability to feel and know that we are one.
Exactly.
Like we are connected with everything, including these Pleiadians, like everything.
Yes.
And then while we're talking about these dimensions, okay, what's above the old 5D? Is there more above the 5D?
Oh yeah, it keeps going. There are 9 dimensions that I have heard discussed. There's 9 dimensions. There's someone named Matthias De Stefano who does an incredible breakdown of the 9 dimensions on a TV show on Gaia. So if anyone's interested in like really, it gets very complex beyond the 5D for our brains.
We'll throw the link in case anyone wants to do their own little dive into that.
But it gets quite complex, but it is a fascinating deep dive to go into.
I feel like I've heard that like the angels are kind of in the 7th dimension or something like that. I don't know. There's different dimensions for everybody.
And again, all those dimensions are here right now. So they are not different places. It's just what you have access to, what plane of reality you have access to in the moment, which I know is a little like, bleh.
Like, oh God, okay, all right.
Our human brains get real confused beyond the 5.
Sure. Yeah. I feel like just being able to understand 3 heading into 5, because we're all kind of doing 4D already too then, if we're connecting with our, like remembering our past, thinking about our future, we're doing 4D too. So the next level is 5D then for us.
Exactly.
So that we can all open our consciousness really. Because it's the same Earth, you guys. Things aren't changing that. I mean, we're still here, right? We're not leaving. We're just kind of switching it up. Okay.
Right.
So that's kind of where we're heading in this direction, talking with Brittany today, you guys. So I had a reading with her last week. So we'll talk a little bit about that off and on, but I really want to get into your story then, because you haven't been doing this your whole life.
No.
So let's talk. I mean, you were like a 10-year-old, like talking to you weren't doing that. Okay. So let's hear a little bit about your story, how you got to this point where you're able to channel these interdimensional beings.
Absolutely. So the thing that's really interesting about me that I always like to share, because I think it helps a lot of people relate more to me and what I'm doing, is that I was, up until very recently, most of my adult life, I was like a hardcore science person. I still love science, don't get me wrong. But I mean, I was a materialist. I didn't believe in anything non-physical. I was non-religious. I was an atheist. So I was not at all tapped into this stuff for most of my adult life. And then in my late 20s, my mother, who was my very best friend in the world, she was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and I became her primary caretaker for 2 years as she passed away. And that experience blew something open inside of me.
Well, sure.
So it opened up something, and I began to have some really interesting spiritual experiences that at first I kind of ignored, until finally they got loud enough that it was like, okay, I have to pay attention to this. So for example, when I was traveling in Southeast Asia, I was in an ancient Buddhist temple in Laos, just sitting cross-legged, looking around. And suddenly my consciousness shot out of my body, and I was floating in the ceiling looking down at my body. And it was scary and crazy and like,
yeah, were you meditating or just chilling?
No, just sitting there looking around. It was, it was very intense and very confusing. And I had a number of unusual experiences until finally, I had a few out-of-body experiences like that. Until finally, I was like, you know what? I think something is going on here. Something's trying to get my attention. Yeah. And it took that long. It took a long time though. It took years for me to be willing to examine this because of my background and because of the way I saw the world.
You were blocking it. For
100%. It was just too different, too weird, too different. And so I decided I'm going to just turn and look at all of this. And as soon as I did that, then I started to have even more intense experiences. And one of those experiences in my early spiritual awakening, this was back in the first time that Ozanon came through, was an episode of spontaneous channeling. And so what that means is I was in my living room dancing to some music. I was by myself, and I felt something like come through my body. And it was so strong that I sat down on the ground and my head kind of fell back, and a voice, the first time they came through, it was very much like they came through loud through me. And it was like, I allowed it, but it was with a lot of force, almost like it would have been hard not to allow it. And a voice came through and started speaking. And that was the first big connection that I made with them.
So you remembered it, then they stopped speaking, but were you kind of just like in the backseat listening or
Exactly.
like, how does that work?
Yes. So when I channel, I am in the backseat of my consciousness. That's a perfect way of putting it. And so I am present. I am hearing what is coming through, but it is not me speaking. It is another voice coming out of me. And that first time I heard it and I forgot most of it right away, but I knew that it had happened because I don't form memories as I channel. So that was the first time they came through, 2019. It wasn't, and then I worked with them personally, privately, ever since then. It wasn't until the very first day of 2024 that I began publicly sharing this channeling. And that was because mainly it felt really important to me that I knew that my ego and my human psyche was not muddying up any of the message that was coming through, because it's coming through me and I am present. I'm sort of in the backseat of my consciousness, but it was very important to me for ethical reasons that I had developed this skill to the point where I knew that I could allow them through without my human psyche, Brittany, interfering with the message, even accidentally. You know what I mean?
Okay. So this whole time up until then, you were still channeling for yourself.
Yes.
Were you like writing down afterwards what you could remember? Or since you said you don't form memories. Yeah.
Right. I recorded myself a lot. So I would record voice notes.
That's true. You can just because you're saying it out loud, even when it's to yourself.
Exactly. And I also did automatic write. And for anyone who's listening who is like, ooh, I'm kind of interested in this, I'd like to try channeling. Automatic writing is a great way to begin that process. So if you look up automatic writing, that can be quite powerful also.
Okay. No, I've tried that before and I'm not great at the automatic writing, but it's a practice. Yeah.
Sure. And different people will have different things that feel easier for them.
That feel right. Yeah. Okay. So this whole time they're telling you things about your life, about the collective, like they're just coming through with anything basically.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I would ask them specific questions about my life. And actually in 2021, which was an almost 9 years to the day after my mother's death from cancer, I was diagnosed with cancer. And which, as you can imagine, was like my greatest fear. But the thing that was really interesting about this was that just a few days, I didn't have any symptoms going on. A few days before my very first symptom, I actually was in a meditation. I was connected with Ozanon, and another voice came through that was very loud and that Ozanon said wanted to speak to me. So this other voice came through and said, you are approaching one of your soul's exit points, but you get to choose. And this is deep in meditation. So I was like, whoa, okay. And they actually they showed me the other side for just like a short period of time. And it was the most...
You could make an informed decision.
Yes. Isn't that wild? And it was just the most beautiful, beautiful, loving, gorgeous thing I'd ever experienced. So it felt like a real choice. I said, I feel like I have a lot more expansion in this incarnation. I want to stay. And then 3 days later, I had a symptom, my first symptom. It was very mild. It was not something that most people would have gone to the doctor for. But I knew because I'd had this heads up.
Yeah, that something was going on.
And I went in and sure enough, I had cancer. And throughout my entire cancer treatment, I channeled and worked with Ozanon to help make decisions about what steps to take, what treatments to do, what things to add in, what things to take out. And my treatment was highly successful. So I do feel like they've supported me on
You weren't just like, no, I'm going to heal myself with Ozanon. No, you were doing the traditional medical, I mean, because they're, we know these things for a reason, right? These
For
treatments.
sure. Absolutely.
Okay. So you're getting treatment and then you're adding in probably holistic things along with it that they would suggest or Yes. So did you have the same cancer as your mom? Like, is that? No,
it was a different cancer. But what's interesting is my cancer was related to the sacral chakra, which is related to the mother wound. So that's a whole other story.
No, I get that completely because I've had different illnesses and that I feel connected, like getting my attention because of that chakra needing some work. Yeah.
And yes, I'm a huge proponent of Western medicine and Eastern medicine and alternative medicine. And I'm a huge proponent of combining those things in the way that is aligned and right for each individual. So I was really tuning in to what was right for me as an individual.
Yeah, because there's a balance to all of it. Yeah.
Yes.
And that was nice that you were able to like pull in some experts to help with your treatment. No, I'm all about that. Okay. So then so since early 2024, you started publicly letting everyone know that you were channeling for this. Okay.
Yes. In this way. Yeah, for sure.
In this way. Okay. And so this is one of the sessions you can book. She has lots of sessions. So I want to go over the process that one would go through if they're going to ask you, because you'll channel them for others. People can book a session with you and you will actually allow them to come through you and speak with that person and answer. And they give insights without asking any questions. And then you can ask questions. So this is how mine went. So at the beginning, when you first do one of these sessions, you go through a little bit of we both closed our eyes. We did a meditative kind of state thing and you led us through kind of what is that process? What's the intention for that?
Basically with that, so before I get into the session at all, before we even get on a call, I open my channel and I connect with your energy. And then once we get on the call, we do just like a short 5-minute breathing exercise. And essentially what that feels like for the person in the session is a guided meditation. The idea there is that it brings our energies into alignment so that we're kind of at the same frequency. And that makes it much easier for me to bring Ozanon through to connect with you.
Because we have to kind of elevate ourselves a little bit to meet them where they're at.
That's exactly it. Yes.
So are there some people probably don't book if they're totally not into this anyway? Because I was going to say it's probably a big block if you book and you're like, I don't believe in any of this, but let's see what you have to say. You're not going to match up, right? To get good information.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I have had the experience of someone booking a session who was a total skeptic and just wanted to see what would happen. And it was much more difficult to make the connection. And what was interesting is they did bring through some information that shifted this person's perspective. They were quite amazed by what came through. I don't prefer to do that kind of thing. And I didn't know it before I went in, but it was interesting.
They probably feel like they have to more like present more evidence or something, or you know what I mean? Like to prove they kind of know some things about you.
Yes. Instead of bringing through more helpful information, what came through was more like proof type information.
Yeah. So then their next session, they could get more into the rest.
Yes.
Anyway, okay. So we drop in and then basically you take the back seat. So do you basically in your mind, are you saying to them like, all right, I'm allowing you to channel through. I'm taking the back seat now.
Okay. Yeah. So the way that this works internally is, what the client sees is I've closed my eyes and you'll see me moving around a little bit, breathing deeply. And essentially what I'm doing, it's almost like it feels like I'm tuning a radio dial. Like it's almost like I'm opening up and then tuning to Ozanon's frequency. And it's like when I meet their frequency, boom, then they come through. And yes, it's like I often describe it as if my consciousness were like a car, I'm sitting in the back seat, or sometimes it feels like I'm at like the back, like my consciousness is a long tunnel and I'm at the very back of the tunnel and they're at the front.
Okay. Okay, perfect. And then literally you start talking, but it's not you.
Right.
It's not you talking. It's them talking to us.
Yeah.
Okay. So then what happens is they go through and they kind of like just start giving you information. They just start giving information, and then they'll stop and say, okay, we'll stop now for, what do they say? Like questions or
clarification, usually.
Clarifications. Yes.
Yep.
Okay. And then, so you can, during that session, you can have your own personal questions ready to go too.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Are there any questions that we're really not allowed to ask?
No.
Do they not like to talk about any certain thing or no?
Sometimes, no. Usually where they put the brakes on or where they set limits is if people are asking for very specific questions about the future. And they've explained that there are multiple reasons for that. One, the future is fluid. And so they rarely can say with certainty what is coming. Sometimes they can say with a high probability, and sometimes they will share that with people if there's a high probability of something happening, but they can't give like a concrete prediction for the future. So that's sometimes when they'll say, no, we can't share that.
Right. Like you can't say like, okay, can you tell me what day and time I'm going to die?
Right.
Like, no. I mean, that's fluid because like you said, you had a choice to exit at one point, you felt like, and you chose not to. So it just depends on where we're heading in our own intentions for our lives. Right.
Yes,
like
exactly.
They can give you an idea of different paths you could take.
Right. Right.
But like, they're all still open to us. We can kind of still do. Yeah, free will.
And then the other thing that they will put the brakes on is they will not share private information about other humans. So every once in a while, someone will say, someone will want to know, like, I want to know this about my friend. Like, what's really going on here? They're not going to share that because that's
not our business.
That's not our business. Exactly. Yeah.
We should focus on ourselves. Yeah. That's the takeaway there.
And then occasionally there are things that they'll say, you're not quite ready for this at this time. This isn't the time for you to know this, that sort of thing.
Because they're not going to tell you anything that would scare you or isn't for your greatest good.
Exactly.
Much, right?
Exactly. Okay. Everything that's coming through is for your highest good and the highest good of all. But yeah, you can ask anything. I mean, even if they won't answer it, they'll just say, well, usually they'll give some sort of an answer, but maybe not give the exact specific. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Because and there's a lot of stuff going on right now, but so the Pleiadians and all of these intergalactic, whatever beings, they are not our enemies. I want to clarify that. They're actually, what have the Pleiadians been doing for us over a long time? They've been watching over us, or what do they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Pleiadian beings for a long time were watching. It was much more watching, nudging humans in subtle ways where we probably wouldn't even be aware of their influence. In the last 10 to 20 years, they have been making themselves more known, and their purpose for making themselves more known and their mission is to assist us as we expand our consciousness into this 5D ability to perceive the 5D. So they're actually assisting our expansion, our growth. And as we have grown and expanded, they can help us more and more and more. And that is why, especially in like the last 10 years, there have been a lot more verbal channels coming online. There are many more of us now than there were like 10 years ago. And that's because it's easier for them to come through.
People spotting UFOs and all that. Have you ever asked about our government? Have you ever asked them if our government knows all the things and about Area 50?
Area 51. I have asked them about disclosure. So disclosure is sort of the term used in like the UFO UAP community.
Okay.
For when the government discloses alien life. And so I have asked about that, and they have been very clear in recent years that we are going to have some kind of evidence of this by 2030, and likely quite a bit sooner. In the most recent transmission, which is actually over on my YouTube, the 2025 transmission, they talked about how probably a lot of people have heard these stories about the drones over New Jersey.
Yes.
They talked about how there are man-made things in the sky, but the reason those man-made things are in the sky is because there have been these sightings of orbs and lights all over the world that have been accelerating in the last couple months. And they specifically talk about how that is connected to extraterrestrial life, and that we're slowly being deconditioned.
The drones are us. The drones are man-made, but part of the reason they're up there is because there's more activity, and we're trying to check out and see what's going on.
Right.
Yes. Okay.
Basically.
And the whole government knows, people know about this. It just hasn't been disclosed, is what you're saying, to all of us?
So, yeah. So that I cannot say for sure.
Okay.
I don't think that the whole government knows.
No. Just maybe a little set. A little
exactly. But yes, the information I've gotten is that there are humans in powerful places that are aware, that have tried to keep a lid on this information, we could say.
Okay. So between now and the next 5 years, we're probably going to start seeing more evidence and more things that point towards this type of thing. And it's not for us to be scared, because I've heard other little transitions online with no, we're going to stay, we're going to hover, we're going to whatever. We're not going to until you guys are comfortable enough. We're not here to
Exactly. And that's
steal our bodies and our water and destroy the earth. No, that's a movie.
Yes.
That's a movie, you guys.
And there is this sort of slow deconditioning that's happening. I mean, that's the thing. They're by slowly showing up, if you go online right now, you can see tons of videos of people have shared orbs. Yeah. And that's so that we can get used to the idea, so that it's not such a shock, so that it's not so scary.
Yes. So we're going to slowly get introduced to this. So do they have anything, while we're on this, specific to say about 2025? Okay. Because in my individual reading, they had given me some information about the first half of 2025 for me was going to have some different opportunities type of things happening, right? Almost like a birth and death of different things going on in my life. So they had given me information. And so they said during it that 2025, especially the first half, they kept using the word tumultuous. It's going to be very tumultuous this year.
Yes.
Okay. And so have you been getting transmissions through for all of us as a collective, what we should be preparing for here in over this next year, some things that we can do to make this easier on all of us?
Yes. The word tumultuous they've used with several people. I think it might have even been in the 2025 transmission as well. But what they've really emphasized is that even though there's going to be potentially a lot of external chaos, this is a powerful opportunity. This chaos is a powerful opportunity for us to turn within, to get more deeply in touch with ourselves and learn to cultivate a sense of safety in the midst of external chaos. So what they've explained is that as we have this shift in consciousness, as we come into this ability to perceive the 5D, it is going to be absolutely essential that we have an internal sense of safety, that we can rely on ourselves for a sense of safety and security rather than anything external, and that it's going to be essential that we are able to discern what is right for us and what is not right for us. And I'm saying for us because the thing that they've made very clear is that there is not an ultimate, this is right for everyone and this is wrong for everyone. Some things are right for one individual and not right for a different individual. Right. And it's going to be essential as we open up to all of this information that we are able to navigate that information, so that because we can discern what is right for us in that information. And this will be unique to each person.
So some people will not be able to wrap their brains around this. They will not be able to even grasp that, the interdimensional beings are real. They're not here to uplift our consciousness and be open to all these things. So those people will just continue as is. Is that right? I mean,
everyone's going to be expanding. there will be different levels of resistance to that expansion. And this will manifest differently in physical 3D for different people. So yes, those people who are really, really deeply in denial of it will probably experience more and more and more and more chaos until they hit a point where they decide, oh, okay, there's got to be something better or more, or something's got to be more than this.
And then they'll start to open their minds up more.
And then they'll start to open up.
And
yes.
Get some relief.
Exactly.
Yeah, because they were saying to me, because I was saying, oh, what do I need to worry about in this first half? You know what I mean? And they had actually said to me during your transmission that like, I wouldn't need to worry too much because my mind is already opened enough. And I think they refer to it as my soul. And sometimes they'll say like, as you would call it, your soul. You know what I mean? Because we have names for everything, but they use what we call things. Okay. So they were saying that my soul that it wouldn't be too hard for me only because I've already opened my mind to some of these things already. But I'm assuming for people who have not opened their mind at all, it's going to be a little bit rougher path.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. It will, there will likely be a lot more of a shock for, people who are completely unaware of this kind of thing, who have never considered this kind of thing as a possibility. Yeah, it'll be a little more tumultuous. But Jen, I bet that getting to this place where your mind is more open, I bet you had some bumps in the road. Yes. And so it's like, it's just a matter of...
That's going to happen for everyone.
Yes, that's the thing. It happens to all of us. Like when I think back to when my mind was being open to this, and I was having these out of body experiences. I was so emotional. I felt so alienated from other people. I mean, it was very challenging. So it's not that we don't have to experience this because our minds are open. It's that we already have.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've already been there.
Exactly.
Okay, so for a lot of people, that's going to be some of what they're going to feel.
Yes.
It's like some resistance to this whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there something that those of us who are already open a little more, like, is there a way to help ease that for everyone else? I mean, because we don't want to all start fighting. That could be the worst thing we do. Yes. Starting fighting isn't the path that we want to go down, right? We don't need a world war, the third world war. No, we don't need that, you guys. No. So we got to stay calm through this. Right?
So one of the biggest things that they have pointed out multiple times now as an exercise for people, and I would love to share, is it is really important to begin to get into the mindset of what is right for me. So the example, and instead of what is right, period, what is right for me?
For me.
Because the way that we get into this, the way that we have been in this war consciousness as a humanity is because we have many, many humans believe that what is right for them must be what's right for all humans. And then they try to force that onto other humans.
Oh, geez. Everyone's doing that. Yep.
Right. So the idea, and we do it in small ways, all of us do it in some ways because it's so deeply conditioned. But a simple exercise that you can do is begin attempting to hold opposites. So I'm going to use a very simple example that they used in a recent transmission. Dogs. When I talk about dogs, some of the people listening today, their bodies are going to light up. They're going to smile. They're going to think, ooh, dogs. Yes. Yes. That's like they love dogs. To these people, dogs are sweet. They're fun. They're a loving energy. Some people who are listening, when I say the word dog, they're like, ugh, they recoil. Their body tightens up. Maybe they've been attacked by a dog. Maybe they just aren't comfortable with dogs. Maybe they don't like animals. It's not that dogs are good or bad. It's not that one perspective is correct ultimately. It's that for different people, different perspectives are true. And so when you find yourself in judgment of something, so for instance, maybe you are at the grocery store and the person in front of you is rude to the cashier and you find yourself in your head being like, oh, what a jerk. I would challenge you in that moment to imagine, to brainstorm maybe some reasons why that person may be behaving the way that they are. Maybe that person found out yesterday that their mother died. Maybe that person just found out their house is being foreclosed on. That might not be the case, but the idea is that when we find ourselves judging something as wrong or right or good or bad, that we consider the possibility that it's much more complicated than that, and that it's wrong for me. I'm not going to be rude to a cashier, but perhaps for that person in that moment,
that's what they needed to do.
And and one more piece with that that's important. It doesn't mean that we accept the behavior. It doesn't mean that you don't say, hey, don't speak to her like that. Doesn't mean you accept the behavior. It just means you have an understanding of why that person may behave that way, rather than just assuming, boom, blanket, you're bad.
Right. Yeah. Like, hey, don't talk to her like that. Hey, what's going on with you?
Exactly.
What's causing this? Because that's
exactly.
Yeah, that's not just normal behavior to just treat a stranger like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So kind of giving the benefit of the doubt
Yeah.
to others a little bit more often.
Absolutely. That's a great way of putting it.
With a little bit of grace.
Yes.
And I think if you find your tribe of people, then that it becomes a little bit easier too, because it's not just you against all these people that don't think any of this is real or whatever. It's like all of the division. We have political parties and everything else. We just need to all come back together instead of drawing all these lines in the sand.
And having compassion for why other people may see the perspective they see. The other way I like to think of it is we all have different curriculums in this incarnation. We all came here for different reasons, and we all have different things to learn. And someone who sees things very differently than you is likely learning a very different lesson in this lifetime than you are.
Okay. So is there anything else we should be doing for 2025?
Okay, let's see. That's a big one. The other big one, well, you touched on this. Community is huge this year.
Okay.
Community is huge. They've talked about that. It's really important to find community that feels supportive, that feels aligned. And the flip side of that, it's really important to examine honestly the communities that you're in and see if any of them are really not supportive for you. So fine-tuning your communities. And if you are listening to this and you think like, oh, I don't have much community, this is a beautiful year to begin to branch out and see if you can connect with community, because it's going to be easier now than it used to be.
If we're connected. Yeah. Than trying to write it out. You're on your own.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And it's going to be easier to find your people.
Yes. Okay. So have they said have we made that conversion to 5D? Like we're there now, or?
Some people are. Are. So it's happening in waves. Some people have connected with the 5D. Some people very, very much so. Most people, we're still in the transition. We're pretty deep into it this year, though. That's why it's like many more people are going to start to perceive the 5D and wake up this year, for sure.
Okay. And if you're listening right now and you're like, I want to wake up, I want to do that, I want to talk to them. Is there, I don't know. There's not a manual for these things. There is, or there's certain things you can do.
It's not a manual, but there is something that they always talk about as a compass, basically a compass for us. Okay. So when we are aligned with our higher self, oversoul, whatever words you want to use for it, when we're aligned with our eternal energy, it feels joyful and fulfilling. So when you look around your life and notice where in your life, at what moments do you feel joy? Do you feel deep fulfillment? What do you feel excited about? Now, understanding that what you feel excited about might also feel a little scary, might be a little nerve-wracking too, but overall it should feel exciting. It should feel good. And actually following and putting more of our attention and more of our energy into the things in our life, the opportunities, the experiences that feel joyful and fulfilling. It's actually a very simple inner compass that we have. What makes it complicated is that we have been very conditioned in other opposite ways by society. But yeah, tune in to what feels really good in your life. Like where are the moments where you're like, oh, wow, I feel alive. I feel fulfilled. I feel joyful.
Yeah. Something you're passionate about, something that gives you like the butterflies in your stomach when you think about it. And that's, experiences, people, everything in our lives we can start to look at. And in the opposite direction, if there are things that just are bringing you down, like feel super
100%.
negative, you can't stand it. I mean, no, we can't all go quit our jobs tomorrow. We have bills to pay, but we can work towards happier things.
Yes.
Right?
And it doesn't have to be a huge leap. You can just take little baby steps. So if there is something in your life that's really dragging on you, that's really hard, you can take baby steps to change it, maybe to change the way you do it, maybe to change your place. For instance, in a job, maybe you work towards changing the way you do that work. Or again, like it doesn't have to be a big leap. You can also follow the breadcrumbs towards, it's like you can follow the breadcrumbs towards a big leap, but take it in baby steps. Like you don't have to,
make it
doesn't have to be one big jump. You can take little steps until you fully reach the joyful thing.
Okay. So that's raising our vibration to a level where we can actually, like you said, be on the same level with these other spiritual beings. Okay. And so, we're doing all of that. We're feeling like we're higher vibe. Then is it through meditation, or how do we actually say, I'll say this, in my little reading I had, they came through and said I actually could connect more with not the Pleiadians, the Arcturians.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's a whole different grouping here, you guys, of the same type of thing. Okay. Same thing, introduction. And so they actually kind of told me that. And then they told me if I wanted to explore that more, I don't know, maybe they could sense that I was already kind of open or vibrating, however. But then they kind of told me if I wanted to, I could visualize like a blue orb in front of me and, things like that, and ask like out loud or in my mind, ask like, could I communicate with you, Arcturian, whatever, and invite them in and then see what you get. So that could be through meditation or whatever you call when you quiet your mind. Yeah.
Yeah, very simple practice is just closing your eyes, breathing, and asking either out loud or in your mind to connect with your higher self. I would like to connect with my higher self. I would like to connect with the energies who are the non-physical energies who are guiding me. And then one of the things when you mention, how do we raise our vibration? So these practices can be very powerful, like, visualize, closing our eyes, breathing, visualizing something we want to connect to. But actually the most powerful thing for most people when they're starting out is to allow yourself to feel all of your emotions. So one of the things Ozanon talks about a lot is that actually the path to raising your vibration requires you to feel challenging emotions. So a lot of times people hear raise your vibration and they think, ooh, I can't feel pain or sorrow or sadness because then my vibration's down low. But actually, allowing yourself to fully feel your sadness, your pain, your sorrow as it comes up, feeling it, expressing it, letting it move through you, that is actually on the other side of that, on the other side of feeling the painful emotions, you find yourself in a very clear, receptive state, and you will find that your vibration has raised. So that's one of the places where I hear a lot of people in the New Age spiritual community getting it a little wrong.
Right, because it's raising your vibe isn't like, oh, high vibe, just be happy all the time and like kumbaya. No, because we've stored all that negative emotion in our body. So the only way to get it out is to feel the feelings. I talked about this in a different episode just of my own personal journey, like feel the feelings so that you can get them out. And then you have room for the higher vibe things.
Exactly.
We can only hold so much in this little old human body. So we got to get rid of some stuff. And if you're just in denial, which is fine. I spent a lot of time in denial because you're surviving, right?
Absolutely. Yes. There's nothing wrong with that.
But here in midlife, we get to that point where maybe now it's time to dig that up, just release it, let it go so that we have room for all these bigger, better things. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's about being really honestly and authentically yourself. And every human has pain and joy. And so allowing yourself to feel that part of your human experience too, that painful part, it's still part of your humanity.
Yep. still part of your path and the lessons you've learned.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So that's what we got coming in 2025, you guys, and onward all the way to 30. And I mean, if you're young listening, boy, you got a lot of coming in your lifetime.
Oh yeah. Oh
right?
Yeah. Definitely.
Lucky ducks. Yeah. Cause there's a lot of, okay. So just explain this term really quick. Cause I'm sure you know this one. So I've heard there's a lot more starseeds being born.
Okay.
Okay.
So starseeds.
Yeah.
So when you hear that term, it's a new age term that's used to describe souls who, we could say souls, energies, who are incarnating as humans who have most recently not been in human form. So starseeds are souls that are very connected to these galactic interdimensional beings. For instance, someone who maybe lived 3 or 4 lives as a Pleiadian and then in this lifetime decided to incarnate as a human to help with this shift in consciousness, that would technically be called a starseed. But what I would like to say in addition to this and what Ozanon has brought through, which I find fascinating, is that actually all of us are starseeds on some level. Now, there are some people who maybe were just in a Pleiadian incarnation before they came to Earth, but all of us have connections to these intergalactic beings. All of us, every human on Earth does. So all of us are connected to these energies. All of us are, in a sense, starseeds.
Because we are all one. We're all like a little piece of God, source, whatever you call it. So of course we're all connected.
Yes.
And so what you're saying is some of us have lived lives not as a human.
Yes.
Right. In one of these other dimensions, maybe more than one, several. And now we're here. And those people that are technically starseeds, maybe it's more recent for them. So it's more to the forefront of their consciousness or something.
Yeah, I think so.
Where they can actually help us raise our, because they just have more knowledge. And they may not even know it when they're born. It's not that some 10-year-old right now knows for sure they're a starseed. That's what they're here for, but they are. And so what I've heard from other people too is like, there's like a lot more of those starseeds, a lot more of those humans being born right now that have experienced those other things recently and will really be able to help this evolution along here on Earth. Okay. So
I have several clients who are pregnant right now, and it has been fascinating. The beings coming in, the energies coming in children that are being born in the now and in the next several years, they are coming in already more attuned to the 5D than we came in attuned.
Yeah. So they're going to have a lot less work to do to get to this point.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that.
So cool.
Okay. We got a lot of stuff coming, you guys. So stay with me. So I want to talk a little bit too about some of the things Brittany does. Okay. Because you call yourself a fear alchemist.
Yes.
Okay. What is that?
So it's interesting because this is so interconnected actually with my channeling of Ozanon. Essentially, when I had the experience with my mother passing and also the experience of me having cancer, there was enormous fear in both cases. I was just terrified of what was coming, terrified of what was happening. And what I realized through both those experiences is that when I fully felt my fear, when I met my fear, I looked at it, I honored it as something trying to support me, as a protective mechanism, and actually connected with the part of me that was feeling this terror. Then, and again, allowed myself to fully feel it. On the other side of that fear alchemized, transformed into this immense personal power and greater connection to the non-physical realms. And so my fear alchemy work is essentially teaching people and showing people how to connect with their fear as a protective mechanism that they honor, how to allow themselves to feel their fear, and then actually working with that fear to open up their channel, to open up to their own intuition. So it's essentially transforming fear into intuitive connection and power.
Okay. And then is that through, I know you said even when you had your journey with cancer and that, is this part of the creating your inner portal? Because you have.
Oh, yes. So there's two different things. The portal is my 3-month one-to-one container. And yes, Fear Alchemy. So it's basically 3 months where you can work one-on-one with me in a variety of ways. It's very personalized to each person. But yes, absolutely. Fear Alchemy comes into play in a big way. Creating your inner sanctuary is a class that I taught. And
creating your inner sanctuary.
Yes.
Okay, what is that? Maybe that's what I meant. Creating your inner sanctuary.
Yes. Okay. So that's a class that's available. It's donation based. You can grab it at any time because it's pre-recorded at this point.
Oh, cool.
And
okay.
Essentially what we do there is when I talk about developing this inner anchor, this inner safety that we're going to need for 2025, this is a class where I take you step by step through that, how to develop that inner sanctuary that is with you all the time. Because so many of us, our safety is rooted in something outside of us, maybe a partner, maybe a job, maybe a home. And that's beautiful. Those things are beautiful to have and to love. And they are outside of you. So they're not always available to you to access. So having something inside of you that you can access at any moment in your life when things get a little hairy, that is going to be so powerful this year. And so in this class, creating,
rather than being codependent on other people and other things, it's about us learning to be able to be alone, to go within, be with ourselves and kind of
have our own back.
Have our own back.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's a class that you guys can get online and do right away. Start working.
You can do it right now. It's already recorded. You can grab it easy. Yep.
Okay. So you've got your Fear Alchemy sessions. You've got your program, your one-on-one program.
Yeah. And that's the portal.
That's the portal if people want to work with you individually. And that's for people who basically want to open up more.
Sure. Yeah. Most of the people that go through the portal want to connect more deeply to their intuition. They want to open up their connection to the non-physical realms.
Okay. So that's great for that. And then if you would just so you have 2 different one-on-one sessions too, because one you actually book because you want to channel with Ozanon, right?
Yes. Okay. So I have specific readings with Ozanon, which is what you did, Jen. And then I also do psychic channeled readings. Those are a much more traditional psychic reading. You're not speaking with Ozanon. Instead, I'm an intermediary, basically. I connect with your guides, with your energy, and I receive images, sensations, messages. Sometimes some verbal channeling does come through for people. It just depends. But I share everything that comes through with you. And in those sessions, you can. Okay,
so for those, you're able to connect with our spirit team, other things outside of Ozanon.
Past loved ones.
Do they ever just come interrupt? Like, we got something to say too?
Yes.
No. Yeah.
No, they do. Sometimes they do. They drop in sometimes on those readings.
Okay, you're not covering it all. Let us give you some more information. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just expect whatever if you do that session. Yeah, it could go either way. I did mine specifically because I'd never had a reading like that before, where someone was direct verbally channeling, because some people are actually in a trance and they don't remember anything. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Some people are completely not conscious. They're not even there. That's called trance channeling. And that means that when I'm direct channeling Ozanon, I'm still there. I'm still aware. I could stop at any time. Some people go into a full on trance. It's not as common anymore, where they are literally not even conscious. They've gone unconscious and the being has completely taken over their body.
Okay. So if they don't record it, they wouldn't remember a thing. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So you're there. Yeah. But like you said, I asked you after mine. So we got done with my session and she gave this big exhale and I was like, are you exhausted? Does this exhaust you? And what did you tell me?
No, yeah, it does not. It's actually quite energizing. And usually when I come out of it, I think the big sigh is actually removing some of the extra energy. There's so much energy, flowing through my body that I feel quite hyper.
Yeah, because you said you're not drained. Because some people, after they do readings, have told me they're drained. They can only do so many in a day because it's just too much. But you actually said no, I almost feel like a high. I get a high from it afterwards.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's cool. So that's almost a little boost for your day.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Oh,
It
okay.
is interesting that and I will say that there was a time when I first started when it was a bit draining.
Yeah.
It is not anymore. And I think that has to do with my capacity. I think as my capacity has expanded, this work is energizing instead of draining.
Okay. Because it was probably more draining at the beginning.
Exactly. Yep.
When it was just you. Okay. And so basically, now you're sharing it with the world. You did it yourself for a long time and now you're sharing it with the world. And that was probably very scary for you because we don't all really accept the woo-woo really well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of haters out there. Am I right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, that think you're channeling like Satan himself or something.
For sure.
Yeah, there's some feelings out there.
Mm-hmm. And I've had to just one of my big mantras over the last couple of years is I'm okay with being misunderstood. I'm okay with being misunderstood.
We're not everyone's cup of tea, right? We're all on different paths. Mm-hmm. And once in a while, you're going to cross paths with someone who's not really into what you're into. And maybe they're a little mean. Yeah.
Yep, so possibly. And this also what I'm doing and what I'm bringing into the world, it will connect with those who it's meant for. Exactly. And it's not, this is not everyone's curriculum, you know? So
no, some of us weren't even meant to dive into this in this lifetime. Exactly. We have other things going on. So do you have any, what have we missed? Are you thinking of anything where like, man, we really need to cover this that I need to put in somewhere?
I think the only other thing that I just would love to mention is that the purpose of all of the purpose of opening up to the 5D is not so that we can escape the human experience. In fact, the purpose is so that we can experience our humanity even more fully. I think a lot of people get into spirituality and have their awakening, and this included me early on. And they have this goal in mind that they're going to escape the pain and challenge of being human. And actually you can't. And that's not the purpose. The purpose really is to take that connection to all of this non-physical and bring it into your human life so that your human life can be more fulfilling and more extraordinary.
Yes. So none of this is scary, right?
It's not always easy, but it doesn't have to be scary.
It's not always easy. It's rarely easy. I'm just going to say it because because we chose to be these little humans and feel the feelings we can only really feel as a human.
Exactly.
And then we're learning from it. And even though we hate every minute of it sometimes, learning from it.
And that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And opening our minds more. And like you said, being able to find more solace in ourselves and our own spirit team and our higher selves through prayer and meditation or whatever you do can only be helpful in this time. It's not going to make things worse for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's right.
We're open to it all. And if you have people that are like, think you're nuts right now because you're into this kind of stuff, hey, it's okay. They weren't meant to be your people.
That's right.
Like we can't. I've learned, we get to midlife, we already know we can't please everybody. We've already learned that lesson. Yeah.
That's right.
So we got to start putting ourselves first. Yep. And start opening up. Yeah. I love it.
Yes.
Okay. Brittany has given us so much to think about, you guys, right? Especially if this is your first time hearing about some of this stuff. I'm going to put all of her information as usual in the show notes and the links to everything she does. She's got a podcast too, all kinds of good stuff. So I'm going to have the links to that. If you feel so called to get a reading like this, you totally should. Okay. Any of the kinds she does, even if you're not quite ready to talk with the extraterrestrials, it's fine.
Yeah.
You're still going to get tons of information from Brittany, and just jump in and do it. I'm going to put everything in the show notes, and I'll link up if you guys want to learn more about all of the 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D kind of stuff. I'll do that link in there too. That way, if you want to do your own deep dive on some of these things, you can learn more about it because there's a lot to it. This isn't like a quick episode kind of thing. We tip of the iceberg it for you here, guys. And I don't even know very deep. I'm just starting in this with you guys because I don't know enough about all this either. This is new for me. And so I don't want to scare you guys all off by talking aliens, but listen, you know this is real. You know it right now. If you're listening to my podcast, then you know we are not alone, you guys. That would be very self-centered of us to think we're the biggest, best beings in that God made in the whole universe. Come on, guys, look at us. That's not us. That's not us. So yeah, start wrapping your brain around that, and it'll become much easier to know that there are higher, more evolved beings that want to help us out. And so we're not going to fight about it. All right. Over the next 5 years, we're not fighting about it, everybody. We're going to come together as a collective with our people, raise up the vibrations. And then I'm a midlifer. Then I'm just going to move on to the next life and let all these kids handle the rest.
Yes. I love that. Yes. That's beautiful.
Just really new people taking over, guys. We're going to let them. And then we're just going to see where we pop in the next life. If it's here or somewhere else, we'll just wait.
There you go.
Oh,
I love that.
I know. Well, thank you, Brittany. This has been so enlightening. I loved every minute of it. And you'll have to come back another time so we can dive more into some other things.
Oh, would love to. Thank you so much for having me, and everyone listening. I so appreciate you being here. Thank you.
I know, me too. Okay. Thanks, guys. See you next time. Listen, I know your time is valuable. And right now I'm feeling super grateful and totally humbled that you chose to hang out with me today. If this podcast resonates with you, could you do me a solid and hit that subscribe or follow button? That's going to help you out because you're never going to miss an episode. And it helps me out because you're never going to miss an episode. And if you have like 30 seconds more, could you leave a 5-star rating and maybe leave a kick-ass review? Thank you so much. And I can't wait to continue our journey on the next episode. Oh, and I can't forget the fine print. You know, the legal jargon. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. We're just two friends on this journey together, and this podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or any other qualified professional. You get it. See you next time.